Hi, my name is Brooke, and I want to thank you for joining me to practice some math today. Today we are working on subtracting integers. Previously you worked on adding integers, and today you will notice that subtracting integers is very similar to our steps from adding integers. We will just have one new step at the beginning of each problem, and it will turn our subtraction problems into addition problems. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. First, we'll take a closer look at some of these subtraction problems on our example page. So every problem has three parts. We'll see an integer at the beginning, we'll see a sign in the middle, and then we'll see another integer. So today, all of the signs in the middle will be subtraction signs. Our first problem says 2 minus 8. Our second problem says 2 minus negative 8. This problem is showing us negative 3 minus negative 4. And finally, this problem is showing us negative 3 minus 4. So let's talk about the steps that we need to do to subtract integers. The very first step is that we will use the phrase keep, change to turn our subtraction problems into addition. Once you do that, you will be able to follow all of the addition steps that you practiced before. So let's do some of these problems from start to finish. So we'll look at the problem 2 minus 8. Every time we see a subtraction problem, we are going to use the phrase keep, change to make it into addition. That means that we will keep the 2 in this problem. We will change from a minus to a plus. We'll change from a positive 8 to a negative 8. So that was step 1. We did keep, change to turn it into an addition problem. In step 2, I need to look more closely at my problem and decide what type of addition problem I have. Previously, we talked about same signs or different signs. This is an addition problem that has different signs. So I can remember different signs subtract. That means I need to take my higher absolute value, which is 8, and subtract my 2. 8 minus 2 gives us 6. Our final answer is going to be a negative 6 because our higher absolute value was negative. So the big idea is that once you do your keep, change, all of the rest of the steps follow your addition steps. Let's try out another one. So again, I see a subtraction problem. Every time I see subtraction, I'm going to say the phrase keep, change. So I keep the 2, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 8 to a positive 8. So now this is really just a regular addition problem. You could probably go straight to your answer. You know that 2 plus 8 gives us 10. Otherwise, if we think through all of the steps, step 2 tells us to look at the signs and decide what type of addition problem we have. And this time we see same signs. So we would say same signs add. 2 plus 8 does give us 10. And then we know that the final answer should be positive, and that's because both of our numbers were positive. Let's try out a third example. We see another subtraction problem. Every time we see subtraction, we're going to say the phrase keep, change. So we keep the negative 3, change from a minus to a plus, and then change from a negative 4 to a positive 4. So now I have an addition problem. Step 2 is to decide what type of addition problem I have, And this time I do see different signs. I see a negative number plus a positive number. So we will say different signs subtract. I need to take the higher absolute value, which is 4, and subtract my smaller absolute value. So I'm doing 4 minus 3, and that gives us 1. My very last step is to double check the sign on my answer. I know that this should be a final answer of a positive 1 because our higher absolute value in our addition problem was positive. So our final answer is positive. One thing to notice is that especially when we're deciding our final sign, we need to look at our addition problem. Once we have said keep, change, change, we can ignore our original problem and focus on the addition. So be careful to head back to your addition problem when you're deciding your sign. Let's try one more of these examples together, and then we'll do some more practice. So again, I see a subtraction problem. Every single time I see subtraction, I'm going to say the phrase keep, change, change. We are keeping the first 3. We will change from a minus to a plus, and then we'll change from a negative 4 to a positive 4. So now that I have changed into an addition problem, I can ignore my subtraction problem and just follow my addition. This is another example of a problem that just looks like a regular addition problem. We already know that the answer to 3 plus 4 is 7, so you can get straight to your answer. Otherwise, if we think through our steps, we know that 3 plus 4 is same signs, so we just add the absolute values together. 3 plus 4 gives us 7, and then our final answer must stay positive because in our addition problem, both numbers were positive. There are 28 practice problems. I do suggest that you pause this video and try some on your own. This video will cover all 28 and we'll do them all together from start to finish, but as you feel confident, please pause the video, try some on your own, and maybe double check your answers with me. But we'll go ahead and get started. Here is number 1. I see a subtraction problem. Every single time that we see subtraction, we say the phrase keep, change, change. So we keep the positive 2, change from a minus to a plus, and then change from a negative 4 to a positive 4. So I have turned my subtraction problem into an addition problem. This addition problem looks like something I'm very familiar with. We already know that 2 plus 4 gives us 6, so we do not have to think through all of those steps. We can be very confident in our final answer. So our final answer is 6. Let's try out number 2. Every single time that you see subtraction, think of the phrase keep, change, change. So we keep the 5, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a positive 8 to a negative 8. This time, as I look at my addition problem, I see different signs. We've got a positive 5 plus a negative 8. So when we see different signs, we subtract. 8 minus 5 gives us 3, and I just need to decide on my sign. I see that in my addition problem, the higher absolute value was negative, so my final answer should be negative. When you're deciding your sign, it is very important to go back to the addition problem that you created. Do not go back to your subtraction problem. That will mix you up with your signs. Here is number 3. We see subtraction, so we say keep, change, change. We keep the 3, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a positive 6 to a negative 6. So now looking at my addition problem, I notice that I see different signs. I see a positive 3 plus a negative 6. When we see different signs, we subtract. So I am subtracting our higher absolute value minus our smaller absolute value. So it's 6 minus 3, and that gives us 3. To check for my final answer for my sign, I look back at my addition problem, and I see that my higher absolute value was negative, so my final answer also needs to be negative. Final answer is a negative 3. Here is number 4. We say keep, change, change. So we keep the negative 3, change from a minus to a plus, change from a positive 7 to a negative 7. So now looking at my addition problem, I see same signs. I see a negative plus a negative, so we say same signs add. 3 plus 7 gives us 10. And I'm double checking my sign. So it's a good habit to go back to your higher absolute value. Either way, they are both negative, so I know that my final answer should be negative. For a negative 3 minus 7, we get a negative 10 as our final answer. Here is number 5. I see subtraction, so I need to say keep, change, change. We keep our negative 5, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 4 to a positive 4. Now that I'm looking at my addition problem, I decide what type of signs I have. I see that I have different signs because I see a negative plus a positive. So we can say different signs subtract. 5 minus 4 gives us 1. And then I notice that my higher absolute value was negative, so my final answer needs to be negative. Negative 5 minus negative 4 is equal to negative 1. Here is number 6. We see subtraction, so we say keep, change, change. We keep the 6, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 8 to a positive 8. I notice that this is a regular addition problem. This is what I'm familiar with because both numbers are positive. 6 plus 8 gives us 14. So 6 minus negative 8 is equal to 14. Here is number 7. We are still doing subtraction, so we say keep, change, change. We are going to keep the 3, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 5 to a positive 5. This is another problem that looks like a regular addition problem. We see a positive number plus a positive number, so we can do our usual addition. 3 plus 5 just gives us 8. So that means 3 minus negative 5 is equal to 8. Here is number 8. We see subtraction, so we always say keep, change, change. We keep the negative 5, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 7 to a positive 7. So now we see an addition problem, and I need to take a closer look at the signs. I see that we have different signs. We've got a negative plus a positive. So we can say different signs subtract. We are taking 7 minus 5, and we get 2. We always go back to our addition problem to help us to decide our final sign. And I do see that my higher absolute value is positive, so my final answer should also be positive. So this means that negative 5 minus negative 7 gives us a positive 2. Here is number 9. A subtraction problem again. All of these are subtraction. So we're still saying keep, change, change. We keep the 4, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a positive 6 to a negative 6. So now looking at my addition problem, I see that we have different signs. We have a positive plus a negative. So we say different signs subtract. We're taking our higher absolute value, which is 6, subtracting 4. 6 minus 4 gives us 2. The very last step is to check your higher absolute value, and we see that the higher absolute value is negative, so our final answer is also negative. 4 minus 6 gives us negative 2. Here is number 10. Always say, keep, change, change when you see subtraction. We are going to keep the negative 6, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a positive 2 to a negative 2. Now that I've turned it into an addition problem, I need to take a closer look at my signs, and I see that we have the same signs. Both of the integers are negative. So we can say same signs add. We are adding 6 plus 2, and that gives us 8. Since both numbers in our original addition problem were negative, our final answer also needs to be negative. Negative 6 minus 2 gives us negative 8. Here is number 11. We see subtraction, so we say keep, change, change. We keep the negative 5, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a positive 6 to a negative 6. So now that we're looking at our addition problem, we ask ourselves about the signs, and we again see same signs. Both integers are negative. So we say same signs add. We are going to add 5 plus 6, and that gives us 11. Since both integers were negative, our final answer will also be negative. We get negative 11. Negative 5 minus 6 equals negative 11. Here is number 12. We see subtraction, so we say keep, change, change. We keep the negative 3, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 5 to a positive 5. So now looking at our addition problem, I notice that we are adding integers with different signs. We've got a negative number and a positive number. Since they have different signs, we say different signs subtract. 5 minus 3 is 2. And then to double check our sign, we go back to our addition problem, and we see that the higher absolute value was positive, so our final answer must stay positive. This is number 13. Every single time that we see subtraction, we're going to start by saying keep, change, change. Here we keep the 5, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 14 to a positive 14. So now we've got an addition problem, and I notice that both integers are positive. So we can just add like usual. 5 plus 14 gives us 19. So that means 5 minus negative 14 gives us a final answer of 19. Here's number 14. We see subtraction, so we say keep, change, change. We keep the negative 13, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 20 to a positive 20. So looking at our addition problem, we see different signs. I saw a negative plus a positive, so those are different, and we can say different signs subtract. 20 minus 13 gives us 7. Last step is to double check our sign by going back to your addition problem. I see that the higher absolute value in my addition problem was a positive number, so my final answer should stay positive. Negative 13 minus negative 20 gives us a positive 7. Here is number 15. We see subtraction, so we say keep, change, change. We keep the 24, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 25 to a positive 25. Now we see an addition problem with both integers as positive numbers, so we can just add those up. 24 plus 25 gives us 49. So that means 24 minus negative 25 gives us a final answer of 49. Here is number 16. We start with keep, change, change. Every single time we see subtraction. So we keep the 19, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 24 to a positive 24. So now we are adding integers and they both are positive. So this is another problem where we can just add, and 19 plus 24 gives us 43. Here is number 17. Every time we see subtraction, we say keep, change, change. So we keep the negative 12, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 1 to a positive 1. We look at our addition problem, check out the signs, and we see different signs. We've got a negative plus a positive. So we say different signs subtract. 12 minus 1 gives us 11. To double check our final answer and figure out our sign, we can go back to our addition problem and look at our higher absolute value. We see that our number with the higher absolute value was negative, so our final answer should also be negative. Negative 12 minus negative 1 is negative 11. Here is number 18. We see subtraction, so we say keep, change, change. We keep the negative 19, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a positive 1 to a negative 1. Now, as we look at our addition problem, we see the same signs. Both of our integers are negative, so they have the same signs. We say same signs add, so we can write 19 plus 1. 19 plus 1 gives us 20. And for our final answer, we look back at our addition problem and both integers were negative, so our final answer must also be negative. Negative 19 minus 1 gives us negative 20. Here's number 19. We see subtraction, so we say keep, change, change. We keep the negative 13, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a positive 12 to a negative 12. Now our addition problem has same signs. Both integers are negative, so we say same signs add. 13 plus 12 gives us 25. And then we go back to our addition problem, and we see that both numbers were negative, so our final answer must be negative. Negative 13 minus 12 gives us negative 25. Here is number 20. Always start with keep, change, change when you're dealing with a subtraction problem. So we keep the negative 24, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 10 to a positive 10. Looking at our addition problem, we see different signs. So we say different signs subtract. 24 minus 10 gives us 14. And then we check the sign on our final answer by going back to our addition problem and looking at the higher absolute value. Our higher absolute value is negative, so our final answer will also be negative. Negative 24 minus negative 10 gives us negative 14. Here is number 21. Another subtraction problem. Keep, change, change every time. So we keep the negative 8, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 16 to a positive 16. So now that I see my addition problem, I can follow all the steps that we practiced before. In our addition problem, I see different signs, so we're going to say different signs subtract. 16 minus 8 gives us 8. And then we check the sign by looking at our addition problem and checking our higher absolute value. Our 16 was positive, so our final answer stays positive. Negative 8 minus negative 16 gives us positive 8. Here is number 22. I see subtraction, so I say keep, change, change. We keep the 16, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 9 to a positive 9. So now we are adding, and we see the same signs, so we say same signs add. 16 plus 9 gives us 25. So looking back at our original problem, we could also say 16 minus negative 9 is 25. So we will start to see that our numbers get bigger, but we still follow the same steps. Every time we see subtraction, we say keep, change, change. So we are keeping our 41, changing from a minus to a plus, and changing from a negative 44 to a positive 44. So this is another one where we just see a regular addition problem and we can add these up. 41 plus 44 is 85. Here is number 24. See another subtraction problem. Keep, change, change. We keep the 45, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 47 to a positive 47. So now that we have a regular addition problem, we can just add these up, and 45 plus 47 gives us 92. Here's number 25. We see subtraction, so we can say keep, change, change. We keep the 8, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a negative 43 to a positive 43. This is another regular addition problem where both integers are positive, so 8 plus 43 gives us a final answer of 51. 8 minus negative 43 gives us 51. Here is number 26. I see a subtraction problem, so I say keep, change, change. We keep the negative 24, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a positive 4 to a negative 4. This time we see an addition problem where we have the same signs. We see a negative plus a negative. We can say same signs add. 24 plus 4 gives us 28. And then we need to check the sign on our final answer. Always go back to your addition problem. I see that both are negative, so my final answer is going to be negative. We also talked about how it's a good habit to go back to your higher absolute value, but either way, we know our final answer should be negative. Negative 24 minus 4 is negative 28. We've got 2 more problems, almost there. We see subtraction, so we can say keep, change, change. We keep the negative 43, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a positive 35 to a negative 35. So now I see an addition problem that has the same signs. So we say same signs add. We're doing 43 plus 35, and that gives us 78. Always go back to your addition problem to double check your final sign. And we see that both integers were negative, so our final answer must also be negative. Negative 43 minus 35 is negative 78. Here's our very last problem for today. We see subtraction, so we say keep, change, change. We keep the negative 45, change from a minus to a plus, and change from a positive 2 to a negative 2. Looking at our addition problem, we notice that we have same signs. We've got a negative number plus a negative number. So we can say same signs add. 45 plus 2 is 47. And our addition problem showed us that both integers were negative, so our final answer must also be negative. Negative 45 minus 2 gives us negative 47. So thank you again for joining me to practice some math. I really hope that today's practice helped you out a lot. And as always, if you have questions for me, you're always welcome to ask, or you're welcome to ask your instructor. Have a great day.